Hi, everybody. So nice to be here. Hi, I am Natasha Hoskins. I am one of the co-founders of Boys Club. Boys Club is one part community, one part media business. We talk about emerging technology in the context of culture through podcasts and newsletters and events and a lot of other fun stuff. We love NEAR, so we're excited to be here today. I have a great panel, and I'm excited to talk about community. So today's session is titled, In Crypto, Community is Your Only Moat. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that idea. We're going to be discussing whether we think that is true. There's so much discussion about community. It's a big, often a buzzword. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. This conference, I think there's been a lot of conversation that is more geared towards code than community. So I think it'll be a nice sort of reset for us to discuss. Okay, so I think starting with some intros would be great. Do you want to take it off?
Thank you, Natasha. My name is Adam Wozney. I head up community for Overclock Labs, the creators of the Akash Network. Very briefly, Akash Network is a open source, decentralized marketplace for cloud compute. So CPUs, GPUs can all be borrowed from or rented from individual users instead of having to go to like AWS or Google Cloud. So if you have some spare capacity, put it on Akash. And then people who need access to those resources can go on to Akash and gain access generally at a much lower cost and in a decentralized manner. So that's me.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Good to be on the panel with you today. I'm Tim Stingelin from Zurich, Switzerland, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of T4 Capital. What we do is we invest in altcoins, so we're an investment boutique helping the Swiss TradFi guys to jump into the space.
Not an easy job, I imagine. Swiss TradFi getting into crypto is a very specific kind of dude.
Yeah, it's a year-long process. We've started very early by educating them first. So in the beginning, we were a research company and an educational company. We made like a lot of sort of a Netflix miniseries for private banks.
Oh, wow.
And external asset managers, so their relationship managers could get more familiar with the topic. And then you get a second meeting once you have your foot into the door. It's also a community, actually.
Yeah.
They're just a bit more shy and reserved, and you have to gain their trust first. But within every community, they have to accept you. And once you're in, you just have to be authentic. But I think this is sort of what we're going to talk about now, how a community establishes and how you can feed on it.
Yeah.
You have to take care of your community, whatever it is. If it's more tech-orientated people or investor people, they all have their different kind of lens on.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and I think that leads nicely into my main idea of what community is very much centered around my experience at Boys Club. It's very much about like individual people knowing each other, talking to each other, hanging out at events or online in Discord. But the more that I talk to people, I realize that definition of community can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. It's a very fluid, I think, word, and especially in crypto when it can have a lot of sort of financial implications for a lot of communities that impacts the way that people think about it. So would love for you both to sort of define in a few sentences what you think community is, and then if you could bring to life that idea in a very tangible example, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually feel like I'm stealing this definition from a community of community managers called CMX. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They've been around for a long time. I've picked up a lot of my kind of professional community building prowess from this organization. And they define community as basically a community isn't a community until it can self-organize and manage itself. So for me, what I kind of do day in and day out at Akash and in previous roles managing community was look for ways to enable community members to start to do their own thing. Because ultimately the organization that you're a part of, the community you're trying to build, is going to outgrow what me or a team of community professionals that I manage or work with can do. So I'm actively looking for ways to make the community sticky. Once it's sticky, then I start working with individual community members to say, what are the things that you would like to do inside of the community, and looking for ways to enable them. I don't like to push things on individuals because the moment you start saying, well, there's a new requirement, if you want to be in this community, you have to do this, you're going to be like, well, why would I do that? I'm an employee now, and that's not fun as just a community person. Ultimately, you have to make sure your community is fun to be a part of, because you're not going to want to be a part of it. So for me, I go back to the CMX kind of definition where unless you find ways to help your community create models to do things on their own, you're really not building anything that is going to be sustainable long term. And a good example of that is at Akash, we have a kind of an ambassador program called the Akash Insiders. It's a community of around 50 individuals around the world, all doing kind of different things from non-technical to technical individuals. And one of our community members who's not technical really loved the Zeely platform. For folks that aren't familiar with Zeely, it's similar to Galaxy. It's kind of like a quests, thing where it's like sign up to Twitter and get a point and kind of gamifying community building. And Zeely's like another one of those kind of tools. And he presented his case saying, hey, I would like some resources to start building a Zeely community. And I didn't have the bandwidth to do it, and I'm the only community person at Akash, so I said, hey, go for it.
Yeah.
He curated the proposal, put it out online for a governance vote. He got resources from our community pool, and now it's been running for the past 6, 12 months. And he's brought on new developers, he's brought on new community members, and that's all self-organized. Like, I really wasn't involved in any of that. So finding ways to enable individuals that are interested in kind of participating and giving them the tools to kind of go for it, that's, I would say, the most important thing.
Tim, I want to get to you, but one question that I have for you is, do you think that a financial incentive is required for people to have that motivation and to do the work, even though it's fun and even though they're opting into it? There's a fine line and razor's edge, I think, between doing something for the love of the game and doing it because there's some incentive, and I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing community management, community building for a decade now. I know I look like I'm 21. But I've been doing it for a while, and when I started to do ambassador programs back in the day in previous roles, the first thing I was doing was incentivizing through financial reward, and that just pulled in the wrong people.
Yeah.
So I started creating, and I learned from my mistakes. So at Akash, when people join our Insiders program, kind of our community ambassador program, I fill out an application, make sure that it checks out. I set up an interview with them, we chat. I tell them it's volunteer, everything is optional, there are no requirements. But ultimately, you can make the community what you want to make it yourself, but it's just getting involved and being engaged. So I don't like to start off with financial reward or financial gain. I look for individuals who are organically doing things that can be beneficial to Akash, and then finding ways to support those individual efforts, sometimes through swag, sometimes through financial rewards. But I do not recommend anyone starts off with financial gain. Look for people that are contributing organically, and then creating a framework around how you can support what they're doing and rewarding accordingly.
Nice. Okay, Tim, could you define what your idea of community is, and then maybe bring that to life?
Yes, so I also I landed part of my response also from people I trust, and I talked to some of our community members as well, or one of our analysts who analyzes community, which we're talking later, what are the metrics to look at. But I would say there's 3 very important things. One is something that you've mentioned, but the first one I'd start with is like-mindedness. I think the community needs like-mindedness because, as he said, everything is voluntarily in a way. People should not be forced in, but voluntarily pulled into the community. And what I see a common denominator that a lot of powerful communities share is not in a mean way, but in a jokey way, like in a meme way, a common enemy. Like, for example, what we crypto guys, or especially the techies among you, what you like is to have this common enemy, which in that sense is big tech, or can be Wall Street, for example. If I talk to DeFi communities, their common enemy, and this powers this like-mindedness, is they don't like Wall Street and they want to build something decentralized. With Akash, I think the common denominator is get away from AWS, right? Do it decentral, do it in a more inclusive, meaningful way. So that's the one thing, like-mindedness. The second thing is what you tapped in already, it's authenticity. People should be in the community because they like what the community stands for and not for financial incentivization. So people, I try not to stick my head too strong into communities because they know I'm an investor. And as an investor, you always have to be careful because it's not that you're not welcomed in communities, but of course, and that's honest because I represent portfolios of clients. So my main interest is that the price of the token goes up. But get me right, this should not be the main reason why people get into crypto. It should be because they believe in a project and its future and its capabilities to transform a market. So I'm an outside observant. So it has to be authentic. So it should not have too many people like me into the community. And the third point is what I hear a lot in powerful, like inspirational speeches, where they say you need a very strong why. Because if a community has this very strong why, the how is easy. So, for example, if you look at Elon Musk, he has a very strong why when he built something. When he bought Twitter and made X out of it, the why is very clear. If we as humanity lose free speech, then we have a big problem. So the why is we need a communication platform where free speech can be maintained. And that why is so powerful that I believe that he will attract the right people, very strong talents that work for X now.
We got an Elon stan on our hands.
Yes, and there's so many community members joining X. I mean, the usage of X has never been as high as of today. So I think what the community there stands for is a very strong why. And also, NEAR stands for a very strong why, and that's user-owned AI. So yeah, those
Great.
are the three things.
Nice. I love those. So you're an investor. You're thinking about tokens and communities all the time. Could you talk a little bit about how you're analyzing those communities and what you look for, red flags, green flags, things that you see that are unique to specific communities that make you compelled to get involved as an investor?
Yeah, of course. So I would say our approach is twofold. One is purely quantitative, where we look at data. This is very powerful in the sense that we don't have to believe what projects tell us. We can look into the data if it's true. Like if you look at wallet usages, if you look at Twitter followers, or whatever sorts of metrics, but it's just half of the picture. The other side is more emotional, where you have to feel into the community, which you do by attending conferences like this one, where you can see, especially if you go on if you visit conferences year over year,
yeah.
you can sense if the community is growing. So, I mean, it sounds very obvious, but what a community needs over time is to grow and to sustain, because especially in a world of crypto, where I see a potential of a zero-sum game at the end, where you have X amount of communities attracting the followers from each other, you really have to have a unique community. And that uniqueness we look at by the factors I mentioned in the beginning. Those three factors are very important, but also community has to be adaptive and patient. So when it comes to adaptiveness, NEAR is a very good example. Today, AI is the most important talk of the town, and NEAR knows how to adapt to that. Of course, NEAR is in a lucky position because the founders are like native AI people that also got into blockchain very early on, so they know best of both worlds, which positions them very well, I think, as an ecosystem. But yeah, what the community also needs is patience. So if you want to learn what patience is as a crypto holder, you need to talk to someone from the Cardano ecosystem. Because those are the ones that had to be patient the most, and maybe it plays out for them, but there are really community members, like the Cardano people, for example. For me, it's striking when I talk to them, even if for years not much is happening, they're still very much into
Conviction.
This community. So
yeah.
High conviction is also important to maintain the beliefs within a community. Because once in a community, you sense that the core belief starts to fade away. We're in such a fast moving environment that communities can dismantle within days.
One thing that you said I'm curious for you to expand on. Do you think that crypto is a zero-sum game? Is that what you were saying? That there's going to be like one chain, one winner? Is that what you were speaking to? Or did I misunderstand that point?
I would say you have X amount of users in crypto, and you have an X amount of communities and platforms where those users can be distributed to. I believe, as Ilya said yesterday, I believe in not in a zero-sum game, but eventually in protocols that are unique and are contributing to the as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So I do believe that every long-sustaining project, which are a few, so I think there will be maybe 2 to 3% out there of the projects right now in 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
But 2 to 3% that remain and actually build a part of the puzzle for the greater picture, they will benefit. And it's not in that sense a zero-sum game, but in between.
Like a consolidation.
Yeah, you will see a consolidation for sure. I believe it's going to be similar to big tech. I mean, when we saw the internet bubble, there were so many companies trying to build something on the internet, and now we have this blockchain AI movement since years going on, and so many people have already tried to tap into it. Some are very successful, some are starting now in this very second. So you will always have these market movements. I think that's just what free markets is all about, especially in a decentralized world.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I want to pivot to community and decentralization because I think it's a big part of something that I think a lot about with community, and I'm sure you, Adam, are thinking about as well, where the core values, the thing that brings a lot of people to the crypto community as a whole is this deep conviction around the belief of decentralization and a common enemy and a way and a conviction around that is a better future, a more distributed internet. And that's a beautiful future. It's something I'm really compelled by. But balancing that against building an actual brand, building something that has a clear identity can be really challenging. Those two things can sort of be in conflict with one another oftentimes. And so I'm curious how you guys are approaching that, what your experience has been in sort of balancing the values of decentralization and wanting to see like actual real people take ideas and do the thing, while still protecting the values of your brand individually. I'm curious how you've approached that.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like I'm in a fairly fortunate position at Overclock Labs because Akash is fully open source. We're essentially just another voice in the opinion buckets of what people want Akash to become. We Sherpa a lot of it, of course, but ultimately it's a community effort to make Akash work. Without what we've built on the community side, Akash wouldn't be at the level it is today. And I would say a leader in the DePIN space. So for us, what's that?
I would agree.
I like this guy.
Nice.
So one of the things that we're doing at Akash is we have, I mentioned one of the community programs, the Insiders program. These are community ambassadors around the world that contribute to the Akash ecosystem. They can pitch things they want to do, but they can also contribute to frameworks that I've kind of developed to push Akash forward. From hosting events in their region to business development opportunities, working with clients, working with users, trying to get them onto Akash, helping them, hand-holding them all the way from not knowing anything to fully onboarded, to community support. So all these things that are really beneficial to the ecosystem. But we also have these groups called special interest groups and working groups. It's actually, we kind of took Kubernetes model. They've done this with their open source community, where we've set up all these different groups around, client, ecosystem, community, provider network validators, and we have monthly calls where we invite the community in to say, like, what do we want to focus on this month? And then people raise their hands saying, I want to get involved, or how can I contribute? So really, it is a community effort at Akash to kind of move it forward. So I feel like we are essentially a DAO, but we're not a DAO. So that's kind of a nice place to be in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's kind of how we work it.
That makes a lot of sense. I think one of the...
Do you mind if I ask him a question?
Oh, go for it.
Something he previously said. When you said there's no rules of entering into your community, isn't there a threat that you have people in your community that are, I wouldn't say not qualified, but detrimental to it?
Yeah, so it's something we're very, cognizant of. So with our special interest groups that I mentioned, that is something that it's public. Anyone can join right now. If you just go to akash.network, you can check out all the different groups you can contribute to and get involved in. So we keep an eye on like people that are trying to like game the system, because anyone can put out a governance proposal to get funds from the community pool to do things. But that has to go through a governance vote, and if the community doesn't vote for it, they're not going to get funded. So the community does a lot of like the governing, which is also nice. On the Insiders program, the ambassador program that I kind of manage, it is a vetting process. You know, the people put in an application, I review the application, I'm like, this person seems legit. I'll set up a 30-minute interview call with them. From there, I actually introduce them to an OG like community member and say, hey, set up a call, get to know these guys. And if everything checks out, we bring them in. Because it is optional, volunteers, if somebody would be in, and luckily it hasn't happened, that is like detrimental to the community, I can easily say, you're not being very fun, you're out of here.
Fair enough.
And luckily that hasn't happened yet, but we do have these guardrails in place. And on top of that, we also have community guidelines, like in our Discord, like, don't do this, you can do this. So we do have, you know, a framework around kind of the rules of the road. But yeah, I mean, anyone can join. Everyone here should join, so.
I want to talk a little bit about the premise that was set forward in this discussion around sort of community being the only moat, that there's token-fueled opportunism, this idea I think that people discuss a lot in crypto of like missionaries versus mercenaries. And I would love to hear from both of you how you balance those things, you as you evaluate them, you as you nurture a community and are in this industry. I think it's a necessary evil of crypto. I mean, maybe evil is too strong of a word, but it's a necessary part. It's a differentiator from all these other innovations. And so how are you guys thinking about that, and how often does it come up for you I'm sure in conversations every day for you, and I wonder how often you guys are thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can start and maybe give you, again, a sort of a different perspective, because what we represent client interests, and their interest is to invest into a new technology in a way they feel comfortable with. And the clients I'm facing, the first step is, or the first barrier is to make them understand what blockchain and AI is all about, because they haven't used it. Mm-hmm. Most of our client base is 40 and up, and most of our relationship managers that represent other clients in the end have clients 60, 70 and up. So just the first thing is to educate them, right? And then, of course, as an investor, and now that's investor perspective again, but without a token price, and a token price that would go up, a lot of the capital that starts with VC, but then on the floating market with buyers and sellers, or if this trading wouldn't happen, I mean, if there wouldn't be traders, people that are incentivized for price gains and stuff, then nothing in here would be possible, right?
Number has to go up.
So it's as you said, it's like it has to be in a balance, right? What we do, we have one fund specifically focused on Web3 gaming, and gaming is a good example of where you can ruin games with too much blockchain features, especially if you have a game which is not fun to play. Of course, it will not succeed, but there are actually good titles who overstress the focus on tokenomics or whatsoever, and they annoy the community a lot, because community gamers, and that's, I hope it doesn't change, are in for the games, right, and not for profits. It's nice to have smart contract-based tournaments. If you're good, you can monetize your skills. I do believe that should exist in a world, so gamers, not just by advertisement, but they have an own other form of monetization through gaming, through NFTs, so in-game assets they own, which they can sell later on. I think it's a balance of those two. Blockchain is a very powerful tool, but it should be a backend tool for people's gaming journey or whatever industry it is. It should be a backend tool that makes your experience better, but it shouldn't be like stressed too much on tokenomics or incentivization mechanisms.
Yeah. Cool. And I can go, I think we're running out of time, so very quickly, we don't ignore retail. No, I'm watching that. We don't ignore retail, but we're enabling other community members to engage with the retail audience. Because ultimately, if Akash isn't growing through network usage, deployments, new providers on the network, then there's no point in retail being interested in us.
Yeah.
So I focus on developers that are interested in actually deploying onto the Akash network, and that essentially appeases the retail audience, which is essentially managed by other community members. So that's kind of how we approach it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. Give a hand to our panelists here. Thank you, everybody.